Well, welcome back to Life on Cars. Hope you're all well. And in today's episode, we're going to be working on the big Jag on the XK because it's time for an oil and filter change. But before we start the job today, I just want to do a couple of shout outs to a couple of my amazing subscribers on YouTube. So David sent me this amazing plaque. If you follow my channel on, if you follow my page on Facebook, you might have seen this. But yeah, David sent me this beautiful Jaguar plaque which says approved garage services. I really like that, David, and I like it so much it's been in my office so far. So it hasn't gone up on the wall in the garage yet because I like it in my office, but it might go on the wall in the garage soon. And then another follower called Steve sent me a message, said he wanted to send me this plate from Antigua. He'd been on holiday and he saw this line on the ground, and he thought about sending it to me on Life on Cars. How nice is that? So yeah, a number plate from Antigua. Isn't that fantastic? So that's going to join the plate collection very soon. Anyway, so yeah, oil and filter change. What's going to be involved? Is it a DIY job? Let's find out. Let's go. First things first, a little run around the block to get it warmed up. Ouch. What are you going to need tool-wise for this job then? So you don't actually need a huge amount of tools. Phillips screwdriver, 10mm socket and ratchet, that's to take the under tray off. 13mm spanner for the sump plug. And then you'll need something to remove the oil filler, and I'm going to use these mini eagle beaks, which are I tend to find do the job for the oil filter, and you'll see why in a minute. Some disposable gloves as well, and some rags. If you do have access to a torque wrench, like mine, I've got this mini torque wrench here. That is quite useful for tightening the sump plug back in correctly. The sump plug, if you're interested, is tightened up to 25 Newton meters. But if you haven't got a torque wrench, then basically you're just going to nip it up by hand and you'll probably be able to get away with that. Yeah, I would recommend a torque wrench if you're not sure how much to tighten things. Right, what about parts? So I went to Jaguar for the filter. So it is a C2C41611, and I also got a new sump plug because they won't sell you the washer on its own. It's kind of fixed, or it's like an interference fit, that rubber seal onto the plug. So I bought a new one. You may get away with reusing the old one, I don't know, but for the sake of a few extra quid, you might as well get a new sump plug and washer. Now the Jaguar XK 4.2, you'll need at least 7 litres of oil for an oil and filter change. So this time around I've gone for this quartz fully synthetic 9000. It's a 5W30, which is the right spec for the car. And I've got 2 tubs there, so I've got 10 litres in total. But like I say, I'm probably going to need about 7, or maybe about 7.5 litres. Jaguar do say if the engine's completely dry, you'll need 8.5, but in my experience, I think we'll probably end up using just over 7 litres. Yes, Jaguar Land Rover. Yeah, should be good stuff, this. Yeah, so in total, the parts and the oil, you will be looking at around about 90 quid, depending on how much you pay for the oil. But yeah, I guess it's peace of mind, and like I say, I tend to do this at least every 18 months. You may need to do it more than that depending on your mileage, but I'm doing low mileage at the moment. So it's been about 15 months this time around, but probably every 18 months, I think, moving forward for a low mileage service interval on the oil. Alright, so we've got the car warmed up, we've got it back in the garage, we've got it up on jacks and axle stands. And if you're interested in good places to jack and support the Jaguar XK, you can check out one of my other videos which shows how I actually do this. So yeah, I've got it up on 2 stands in a good place, and we've got some good working height. So what we need to do now is get underneath. So you're going to need a suitable container to drain the oil into. Well, in my case, I'm going to use 2, so we'll see how we get on. I'm just going to take the oil filter cap off. Yeah, so the engine's nice and warm. I think I'll just pull the dipstick stick up a bit as well. Just allows a bit of air to come into the engine. So we need to get underneath now, get the tray off. So this is the 4.2 litre Jag, and basically you need to be underneath to do the oil change, because the filter is basically next to the oil drain plug. We'll have a look at the 5 litre, the differences between this one and the 5 litre one a bit later on in the video. So looking from underneath the car, we need to take this rearward tray off, the one that sort of partially hides the steering rack. And it's fairly straightforward. There's basically a couple of 10mm nuts up inside those 2 holes there, and then we have a couple of screws here and here, and then this tray will come off out of the way. So there we are, and then we've got the tray down. So you'll have seen me do that if you watched my video where I was doing the subframe wax oil. So now that tray's down, we can see the sump here, we can see our drain plug, and also we can see the oil filter, which is up there behind the oil cooler, but fairly accessible, as you can see. So yeah, on these Jags, on the 4.2, you have to get underneath because the oil filter's underneath. And for that reason, I mean, if you've watched some of my other videos, I do have an oil extraction pump, but because I'm coming underneath here anyway, I might as well do it the conventional way and remove the oil by draining it out. But I'll talk a bit later on about the extraction pump, because it is a great buy if you own a 5 litre Jag, because you can basically do an oil change on the 5 litre one without getting underneath the car, because the oil filter's up top as well. But yeah, I'll cover that off a bit later on. Let's get this oil draining out. So you're going to need a 13mm spanner to remove the drain plug. Let me get my bucket ready. Now this bucket's only a 5 litre bucket, so what I do have is a second bucket ready, which I'm going to pop underneath when this 5 litre one starts to get a little bit full. So because you can buy oil drain containers which will hold more than 5 litres, but I don't currently own one. Here we go. Make sure you've got disposable gloves and plenty of rags. So I'm going to let that come up to about 4 litres and then I'm going to swap it over. So we've got the torque wrench set to 25 Newton meters. I'm going to pop a new sump plug in now. It's a good opportunity while you're underneath here to have a good look around your sump and make sure there's no oil leaks or anything. Pleased to report that mine is nice and dry, so that's good. So I'm just going to run that in by hand and move my oil jug out of the way now and give it. There we are, that's torqued up. Give it a little wipe off. Right, we need to tackle getting that oil filter off now. So the way I'm going to do this, I've opened these eagle beaks, these mini ones, up to the maximum opening. I'm going to go in head on like that with the tool over the end of the filter like that, and unscrew it. Now it's slack now, so I can just unwind it. Got the bucket positioned underneath just to catch the drips, so because it will drip some oil out when we wind this off. Here we go. Unfortunately, it runs all over your oil cooler, so that'll be to wipe down afterwards. There we are. Yeah, get quite a bit of oil coming out when you take one of these off the XK 4.2. Nice. That's not lubricated, so we're going to put a little smear of oil around that before we install it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of engine oil around the seal of the new filter. And then just need to wind it on by hand. So it just needs to be hand tight, this. So put it on as tight as you can get it by hand. That's it. Then we need to have a bit of a wipe where the oil's been running out around this oil cooler. Normally a good indication that you've got no oil leaks is when you drop that tray off that hides all this, the tray will be clean, which mine is, so that's good news. So we've got the new filter on, we've got the new plug installed, but we're not going to put the tray back on yet, because what we're going to do is put some oil in now and run the engine and have a look under here and just make sure there's no leaks before we put things back together. Right, let's get some oil in. We're going to put 5 litres in, and then we shall start dipping the oil on the stick after that. You know, doing an oil filter change is probably one of the best things you can do for the longevity of the engine. I mean, it's like the lifeblood of the engine. So regular oil changes should be number 1 on your maintenance schedule for any engine, really. And if you can do it yourself and save a few pounds, then even better. Right, there's the first 5 litres gone in. So I think I'm going to go for about 6 litres in and then start dipping the oil, see where we are on the stick. Okay, so 6 litres has brought us up into the lower end of the scale. So it's looking like 7 litres is going to be about bang on for an oil change on one of these, oil filter change. But remember, we haven't run the engine yet, so it's going to drop down a bit more. So I'm going to put another litre in to bring it up to the top on the mark, and then we'll run the engine. Right, I'm at the top now on the mark with the oil, so I'm going to stop at that and I'm going to start the engine up. So one of the quirky things about our XK 4.2s of this era, so as you know, mine's an early 2006 XK X150, and you can see there I've got the ignition on and there is no oil pressure warning light like you would get in a conventional car. Basically, Jaguar decided on this model that they would do away with an oil pressure warning light, and instead, when the oil pressure gets low on this car, you will get a message coming up saying low oil pressure. So when you go to do a startup after doing an oil filter change, there's nothing to see really on here. There's no oil light to watch to go out like you've seen me doing on other oil changes. You've just got to basically start the engine up and make sure you get no message saying low oil pressure. If you don't get any message, everything is fine. And on the 4.2 XK, the oil is checked on a dipstick in a conventional way. So let's go for a start up. So there we go, everything's okay. It's telling me the bonnet is up, but apart from that, it's fine. So I'm going to shut it off now and get the oil level correct. Right, we've ran the engine. There's no leaks, had a good look underneath. So I'm going to pop the cover back on now, get it back down on the ground so it's level, and then we'll do the final oil level checks. And job should be somewhere near finished. Alright, so we've had it running and switched it off, so we know the oil filter has filled up with oil. And what I've found on mine is to get it to the top, I've ended up putting in just over 7 litres. So just a tiny bit over 7 litres has brought me to the maximum mark on the dipstick. So nice and clean, isn't it? You can barely see it. But yeah, we're right at the top there, so that's spot on. So we're near enough done now. Just going to put the cap back on. Wipe off any drips. Super duper. So I mentioned a couple of times in the video about using an extraction pump. Now, if you've watched some of my videos on YouTube, you might have seen me using this on the diff oil change video. And I've also used it on a couple of other oil and filter changes as well that I've done for YouTube. Now, why am I mentioning this? Well, the reason I'm mentioning this is because on the 5 litre engine, which looks like this, once you pop that cover off of the engine, you can actually gain access to the oil filter from the top of the engine, which is quite handy because that means you don't need to crawl underneath. So if you've got an extraction pump and you've got the correct tools, you can remove the oil filter from the top of the engine and suck the oil out, which makes the job quite straightforward. So yeah, what you'd be looking for once you've got that cover off is the oil filter housing, which you can see here circled in yellow. And you'd need obviously a special tool to remove that oil filter. But the tools are fairly easy to get a hold of. And I'd certainly be, if I was running a 5 litre engine, I'd certainly be looking at getting hold of the tool. So if you're interested, this is the tool here. Sealy 90mm 15 flute oil filter cap wrench. That's what it looks like. And that will safely remove the plastic housing on your 5 litre engine. You can see the middle there, it's basically a square drive, which is a 3/8 drive ratchet that'll pop into there, and then the oil filter housing can basically be unscrewed by fitting the tool over the top of the housing. So yeah, the oil will then drain into the engine and there'll be hardly any mess, and the job will be quite straightforward. So yeah, if you've got a 5 litre, think about getting a extraction pump. Thanks again to Steve, who sent me some of those images to use in this little clip. This is his lovely Jaguar XK 5 litre here. Beautiful colour, isn't it? Yeah, thanks very much, Steve, for sending me these few images to finish off this video. Really appreciate it, buddy. Well, there you go, and I hope you enjoyed that episode today on the oil and filter change on the Jag. Fairly straightforward, wasn't it? And I hope you enjoyed that extra bonus footage around doing the oil change on a 5 litre Jaguar as well. And if you did enjoy the episode, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. That would be fantastic. And check out the playlist on the Jag as well, and see if there's anything else that spikes your interest. So yeah, there'll be other episodes coming very soon on Life on Cars. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye, bye bye.